Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. Welcome to the channel SAP Manufacturing Consultant. Basically, today we have one object to create, which is one of the most important one in order to be able to create a process order. Okay, we need this object, which is the master recipe. And the master recipe will state all the different operations and phases that we need to produce certain products. Okay, it's interesting master data because it connects a lot of things. We will see that along the video. Okay, there are two ways of producing or creating a master recipe. One is directly for a specific material, and the second is just a generic one for group and counter. Then we will assign the material to this group and counter master recipe. Okay, so let's start with this. Let me review first all the steps we're going to be performing during the video, or probably in the next two videos, because it might be the case that we'll need to cut off the video and create a part two as well, because it will take a long time. Okay. We will start maintaining the header of the master recipe, then we will maintain the operations, and then we will maintain the production standard values. The production standard values will be basically the time that will take to perform certain activities, okay, and to produce a base quantity of product. After this process, we will save the master recipe. Okay, probably we'll have this in one video, and then we're going to continue with point four in a second video, part two. The part two will start with the material assignment. So we will make this generic master recipe to be linked to a specific material or more than one material. You will see that how it is possible. Then the production version will be created. There are two ways of producing or creating a production version. We can create it from outside, from the C223 transaction, or we can create it from inside the master recipe, okay, using the C202 transaction. Or C201 if you are creating everything in one run, right? In our case, we will need to edit because we will save it first for the first video, and then we will come back again for the second video. Production version will be created. Since we created production versions, there will be a link between the bill of material and the master recipe. So we will have all the components available. So we will go to point six, which is assign the components to the phases. Okay. And then the last point is maintain the QM for in-process inspection. And not only the QM characteristic, but also some parameters for QM that we will need to set up inside the master recipe for in-process. Okay. Okay, let's jump into the demo now. So to create a master recipe, we need to go to transaction C201 to create it, okay? Two to edit and three to display. Let's jump into this. As I mentioned before, we have two ways of creating this. One is the recipe group and the recipe counter, or we can assign it to a material specifically, okay? This time, we will create this as a generic one, just the recipe group and counter. And then after saving that, we will open it again and we will assign the material as a separate step. Okay. So now let's maintain the header, as I mentioned. So for that, we need to just leave this, okay, because the system will assign an automatic number, but we'll state that we want 0 as a recipe because this is a semi-finished product, the one we will be assigning. Okay. We need to assign the profile in order to create this master recipe, okay? Keep in mind, we're not putting anything in the recipe group, we're just putting this master recipe. We use the master recipe group when we want to assign to the same group multiple recipes, then we need to put the master recipe when we are creating the next one, okay? But this is the original one, the first one, so I'm gonna leave this blank, okay? Let me just press enter. we will put here fertilizer master recipe. This will be for DE01. And this is the header, okay? So for the header, we have a status. We define the status 4 as the typical one for release general in order to use it for a process order and forecasting altogether. Otherwise, these are specific only for order or forecasting. The usage is always production in our examples. We can assign a planner group to this. There are some functionalities we can assign. It's a resource network, so we can choose what resource we're going to be using. But this is a functionality we will see in a specific video for that. Okay, we have the change quantity range. Okay, we can assign different master recipes depending on the, let's say, range. Okay, let me give you an example of this. Let's suppose you have a pilot plant that you can produce 5 tons of fertilizer. Okay, and then you have the regular plant that can produce, I don't know, 50,000, okay, kgs. And if you want to use the pilot plant with a specific resources, right, you might put here up to from 0 to up to 5,000. And then you can have the other plant, right, from 5,001 to 99 millions, or we can put from 0 to 99 million. Then there are 2 different options. Okay, the ideal situation is to have a range specifically, so the system can pick up this automatically, right? Otherwise, we need to do that manually. Okay. And what we can do here is basically define, since there is no material yet, the system doesn't know which one is the basic unit to measure. Okay, so let me put kgs, because we know we want to be assigning this to semi-finished products, probably several fertilizers in bulk. Okay, so it's going to be kg. Then we have the base quantity, which is basically 1000. I'm sorry, it's 1 in this case. So we're going to do it to 1000. Okay. There are 2 ways we will define in the operations. You will see that one suggestion is to use how much you can produce in 1 hour of the activity, or you can put certain base quantity fixed for everything, for all the operations, and then you put the time that it takes to produce that quantity. Okay, it's up to you the way you want to do it. Okay, so I'm going to leave this 1000 here for now. Okay, and then we will see that in the operations phase. Okay, let me scroll down. There is nothing else here. Okay, so this is basically the most important assignments. Then after we create other assignments, the quality management will be active and the material assignment will be needed as well. Okay, so we will come back later into these 2 ones. I don't want to assign the material right now. Okay, let's jump to the second tab, which is the operations. Okay, this is the operation view, where we can see a column for the operations, another column for phases. It's just a flag. So we will use one operation, but flag it as a phase. It means it's a phase that depends on operation, a superior operation. This is a superior operation column. Okay. Then we have a destination for the control recipe. This is when we use that functionality. We will see that in a specific video. It's not in scope here, but we will need to put a destination anyway, even though we're not going to generate these control recipes. The resources, okay, these are the resources we have created. You can check the video for that. Then the control key. The control key is an important parameter because It has inside other parameters, for example, PI01, that will perform a scheduling of the order, will perform determination of capacity requirements, basically how many hours it will be needed for a certain resource, because you will be producing certain amount of products, and the costing. It also will cost that phase operation, let's say. Okay, and then you can have other parameters here, and there is one I would like to mention and highlight, which is this one. It seems to be blank, but it means something. Okay, so even though it's blank, it means the confirmation is possible, but not necessary. Okay, so then we have other confirmations. We will use the milestone confirmation required, the confirmation not possible. Okay, so then we can use also standard text key, or we can just type in here. Just for the sake of facilitating the video and not taking so long, I created here before, so it's stored in my buffer, and I will have here all the different descriptions very quickly. Okay, let's start with the first one, the resource. I need to assign a resource. Let me just find it as well here, just to facilitate. Mixing unit, okay? And we're gonna be mixing, I think it's mixing raw material blending. Yeah, that's the process here, okay? So we assign the resource, we need to assign a description, and then we need to go to assign a first phase, at least one phase per operation. To assign a phase, you need to go to the second operation here, for example, and you can assign the next number. Instead of using 20 and assigning as a phase of operation 10, what I would suggest is to use, like, for example, 11. So you know the 11 is part of a 10 operation. It's easy to check or to realize what kind of dependence we have. Okay, this is just for human understanding, right? For the system is enough if we say this is a phase and this belongs to superior operation 10. So this belongs to this one. Okay, this way. Then we need to assign a destination. In this case, we will assign this generic one. I had to configure. Okay, it will not do anything. It's mandatory. Okay, so we'll have it there. Then you have the resource. Even though you see this is blank and you might be tempted to assign a resource here, it's not possible, okay? Because you can assign the resource only to the operation, and all the phases will inherit the same resource, okay? And yeah, let me just press enter, so you will see that it's going to be gray out. Yes, see, it's inherited, so you're going to change it, okay? To change resources from phases, you need to change at the superior operation first. One thing to mention here is, from the approach perspective, is that you are able to create many phases. For example, if you have three raw materials like we do, right? We have three to add, then we can eventually create one phase per raw material assignment or load, right? And we can put some phases for QM inspection in case you need to check pH before the addition of a next one, for example, or in the pharma industry, sometimes you need to check the temperature first before you add an API and, let's say, an active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? So those are the cases where you can assign multiple phases if you want, okay, per operation. Just for the sake of this video, just to keep it short, we will just assign one phase per operation, okay? Because we have several operations actually, okay? So one thing important to mention here is that at the phase level, as you can see, the relevancy for costing is present. It means it will cost at this level, okay? Therefore, we need to assign the production standard values, okay? We will do that in the next step, but you can see here there are some values open or fields open to put some values in, right? We will discuss that in the specific in a few minutes, I would say. I will finish first all the definitions of operations and phases. This will take some time, and then we will jump into the standard production values. Okay, so for the second one, I'm just gonna change this to 20. This will be another operation. Let me check which one. Yeah, I think it's gonna be this granular drum, yes. And from the operation is granulation process. Okay, so I'm gonna press enter. So we have this one. Now I'm gonna create 21 as a phase, 20, 01. I will try to speed up a little bit. Okay, so we have this phase for this one. Let me just change it to 30. Let me select the next. I think it's a dry, yes, dry chamber. Going to be drying and cooling afterwards. So I'm going to create now the 31 as a phase. As you can see, now let's create an operation 40 that will do, I think it's screening process now. Yes. Screen and particle size control. Okay. And I think, oh, let me do something else. I think it should be, I created a specific one for this. Let me find it. It's not there. I think I put the wrong one. Yes, this one, screen unit. Okay, this is the resource I want to use for this one. Yeah. So now we have 41 as a face, CO1, presenter. For all these cases, we're still going to use the PI01. I will explain in the last point, in the last operation. So we have 50 now. Let me check. It's a coding unit this time. Okay. I'm going to be coating and anti-caking treatment. Then the 51 as a phase. That belongs to 50. Okay. And I think we finished all these operations. I mean, yes, because we're not going to be packing in this operation. This is a semi-finished. We're going to have a separate master recipe for the packaging, and using only the bill of material will pick up the finished good. I'm sorry, the semi-finished instead of all at the same time. Okay, so you can have two approaches, and you can do all the process and also the packing in the same master recipe and the same bill of material, for example, the same process, or you can do it separately. If you store as a bulk the semi-finished, then you can extract or pick up from there, and then you can continue the process and pack out in different packages, right? Okay, so there are two approaches for the following thing we need to do. We're going to add a QM phase and for the in-process. Okay, again, you can have other phases here where you need the pH and you need certain parameters to be determined, right? So you can have actually multiple in-process phases if you need to, right? But just for the sake of this scenario, we are going to have only one, okay? So there are two approaches. One is to create a resource for QM, and you can have a phase for QM, and then you can have a cost assigned to the activity of the QM. In general, for the in process, the time that takes to perform the inspection normally sometimes is minutes, right? And compared to the cost is really, really, really low. And some companies are not necessarily tracking the cost at the activity level for the in-process sample. Okay, what they're doing is basically sending the laboratory cost in general as an overhead that will be reallocated to all the products anyway. Okay, so let's assume we're going to follow that approach instead of having the activity specifically for the laboratory, and we will assign just one phase here, okay, but based on the last resource, okay. So in this case, we can have 52, okay, as a phase. Superior operation is 50. See, it's a phase. And we can press enter here. So now we have two phases for the same. So the first phase is basically the coating and anti-caking treatment. Okay, we can call it process. And for this one, we're gonna change this control key, and we're gonna use one specific one I have configured, which is basically for QM. It's PP, but also QM, which is ZI01. Okay, it's a process manufacturing milestone confirmation. Okay, and we have, yes, this one does not contain the quality inspection characteristic required. So we need to add the specific one for the QM first. Inspection characteristic. Yes, we will assign a QM, regular QM first here. So again, there are many approaches that we can use. Okay, but you can use, as I mentioned, this one. You can use a specific for QM. Okay, so this case is let me tell, in process inspection. Okay, so this phase will only do allow us, let's say, the definition here at this level, at this phase, of the characteristic that we need to perform in the inspection process. Okay, so since the configure one, it was just for the milestone confirmation, I was not considering the laboratory. We need to do it in a separate one. But it's okay because this way you see what you're actually doing. Otherwise, you might be doing two different things at the same time and you don't necessarily know exactly what it is from the master data perspective, I mean, right? So let me create a third one. Or we can just assign to this one, that's another approach, process and milestone confirmation. So it's good to put all the information. So when someone is maintaining, sorry, when someone is maintaining the master data, they will know what the phase is doing, right? So for example, in this case, if we want the milestone confirmation, we cannot use PI01. We need to use the specific one because none of this standard here allows the confirmation one, which is the milestone. Let me show you. See? So we have other confirmation, but not the milestone. So for the milestone, I have created a specific control key, which is ZI01. And as you can see, it's confirmation one. Okay, so let me select this one. And now we have everything that we need. Okay, so basically the milestone confirmation will confirm all the others previous one, okay, all the previous phases. And we can do the QM as well. There is one thing here that might be an impact. It will depend on what we are doing with this QM, okay? Because in some cases, we need to wait until QM is done before we do the milestone confirmation. Otherwise, we might lose some information, okay, if we are doing some actions here, okay? So, for example, if we want to update the class characteristic, we cannot do this first. We need to do it afterwards, okay? This is just a warning. Depending on the definitions that or the processes you're following, you might need to add this extra phase here, as I mentioned, okay? Or some companies are creating a specific last operation with a dummy resource, which is just for the milestone confirmation, for example, okay? So there are many ways of doing the same thing, but of course, depending on the functionalities you are following, okay? So keep in mind that in this case, since QM is after this, right, you will not be confirming the this time, okay? But of course, from the QM perspective, as I said, since we don't want to track cost, okay, that will not be a problem, and we will not add any value here from the costing perspective, okay? I might need to change this for certain functionalities in the test scenarios in the future, okay? But at least you know the other ways you can do this, or the different ways you can do this, okay? Actually, I will need to very quickly, just to ensure, I will just remove the relevancy for costing, so it's clear that it's not going to be costed at all, okay? As you can see, I removed the cost relevancy, and now there is no cost relevancy anymore here, okay? Excellent. We finished the basic operations and phases, okay? I think the video is taking long, but this is important to fully understand all the ways you can do this, okay? Remember, QM can be done in a specific QM resource if you want to track cost, or you can do it anyway without tracking cost, right? Or you can track cost. Then you can have a milestone at the end with a specific and a dummy resource, okay? If I have the opportunity for the next video, probably I will do that way, okay, as well, as so you can see a different way of doing the same thing. Keep in mind that this is the only, this is a very simple one, the one I did here. The milestone is here, but the basically the QM will not be able to perform certain following on actions, right? If we need to, right? And because we will be confirming first. One way we can, let's say, fix this, let me see if I can do it right now. I will put 3. I will put 3 here. Let me see if I can. This will be 2. And this will be 1. There you are. Just in case, okay? Just in case we decide to use some functionalities in this test case scenario. Now we have it in the right order, okay? We have the QM first, and then we have the ZI01 for the milestone at the very end. This is a better practice, I would say, okay? To put it very, very at the end. Excellent. We can jump into the next, let's say, activities, which is basically the production standard values.